Hey everyone, it's John Brown, the one and only Bandana Gamer, coming to you today with a review. A little while back I picked up Retro Fighter's Striker DC Gamepad, for a controller for the Dreamcast, meant to kind of emulate what Retro Fighters did with their Nintendo 64 controller. The reason I picked this up, one, Dreamcast is one of my favorite systems of all time. Probably only second to the Super Nintendo. I think this was an amazing console, super ahead of its time, and even for its short lifespan, it has one of the highest quality game catalogs you will find. Two, I love the Retro Fighters controller for the Nintendo 64. It has become my primary default controller. It has a good modern feel. I hate how the Nintendo 64 controller feels. This feels like an Xbox 360 controller with the Nintendo 64 layout, and it feels great, plays great. Adore everything about those controllers. I've got two of them. I have a gray one and a see-through purple one. So when they announced that they were making a controller for the Sega Dreamcast, I hopped on that Kickstarter, and it has shown up, and now I have played around with it, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. First and foremost, the feel and design of it is great. It feels like a modern controller. This one feels a little bit more like a PlayStation controller because of the extended edges, but it fits your hands great. The first party Dreamcast controller has some harder edges, so it doesn't feel as good. This fits much more ergonomically in your hands. The triggers feel fine. They feel like Sega Dreamcast triggers. Of course, you've got your two memory card slots or rumble pack slot. Face. And this look of this controller, I adore. I think this is a great look for the controller. I hope at some point in time, some company somewhere comes up with a way of mapping these buttons to some kind of analog stick or clicker stick of some sort, just so first-person shooters will be better on this system. But back to this controller and what we're talking about right now. First off, the buttons. Buttons are great. Great click. Real snappy, feel great in games. Cannot complain about the buttons. Good feel to them. I was playing around and kind of comparing them to a first-party Dreamcast controller, and at this point, the Dreamcast controller buttons are a little mushy. Not terrible, doesn't ruin gameplay, but a little mushy. D-pad. Same thing with the D-pad. This is a little bit bigger D-pad than what comes on the first-party Dreamcast controller, and this feels great. This is my favorite feature of this controller. Played Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with this and loved this D-pad. Great D-pad. Picks up rolls real well. Feels great. Has great control over the fighters. Love this D-pad. The one downside to this controller is this guy right here, the analog stick. As you can tell, there's a little bit of play in the analog stick, and the analog stick will move on the slightest touch. You don't have to put much pressure and it moves, which makes games like Sonic Adventure a little harder because you have to be a little more precise. This thing feels like it's going to break at any moment. It hasn't, and it didn't really mess up gameplay too bad. It made Sonic a little bit harder, but Sonic was already hard to control. But the first party controller's analog stick is such a better option than this. I just cannot stand how this feels, how it feels on gameplay. Played Soul Calibur, Jet Set Radio, Sonic Adventure, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 with this, and this just never felt good controlling the characters. And especially in stark contrast to the amazing D-pad that is on this controller. This analog stick just feels like garbage. Like I said, there's a lot of play in it. This controller is fairly new and haven't used it that much. I use it enough to review it, but this just feels like a cheap cop-out. And so that's when I get to would I recommend this controller. If you had this or a first-party controller, as great as this is, if you really want something good for 2D fighting games, the Street Fighters, the SNK stuff that's on the system, or Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, yeah, this is great. This feels great for 2D fighting games. That D-pad and those buttons are great. If you want a overall controller for your Sega Dreamcast, this is so bad and feels so bad to me. I would probably just recommend picking up a first-party controller if you could find one used at a good price and good condition. And that's that's my overall thing. Is I think the first-party controller is still better. This will not be replacing my first-party controller experience with the games going forward, like it did with the Nintendo 64. I may play more fighting games with this, or 2D fighting games, but this gummy, bouncy analog stick really ruined the experience for me. So that's going to do it for this video. Let me know if you've had an experience with Retro Fighters controllers, the DC Strike Pad, or their N64 controllers, or some of their other products in the comment section below. If you like this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give me a like. And I will catch you in the next one, my friends. Peace.